Soxcast is back after a long hiatus, 6 months away, but couldn't be happier to be back. First episode of 2023 as we check in on some of our stars from this past summer. First and foremost, came in 2 or so weeks into the season while the Sox were still hot. He helped them stay hot and became a staple behind the plate for the Blue Sox from Eastern Kentucky. And checking in to us from sunny Florida, the King himself, Will King. Will, pleasure to have you as my first guest of the new year.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Tim.
So, first and foremost, I mean, I think people know this by now that you are the youngest player to ever step foot on a Division I diamond at Eastern Kentucky, and that kind of forced you to grow up pretty quickly, and you did so and adjusted really well, being first team All A-Sun last season. How did you want to take that, what's the word? Accelerated maturity into Utica, and what were your thoughts on coming to Utica as a bit of a late addition, probably maybe like a month or so before you arrived there?
Like you said, going to school early and at such a young age forced me to grow up and learn to play to that competition. So, playing 50 games my freshman year when I was 17, then last year playing 56, and at that point I have around like 500 at bats. So I've been around the college type baseball for some time, and I realized that even taking into summer ball, it's just you got to stick to your game and trust the process. And really, if something's working, stick to it and improve on it. And if something's not working, find something that will work. So I kind of figured that out in season and tried to carry it to summer ball up into Utica.
And like I said, you were added to the roster, I think in like early to mid-May while, you're heading in the home stretch of your own season and like your conference tournament and all that. So what were your thoughts on, being added to the roster and going home to your home state?
I mean, it was awesome that I got to come home, but my whole goal through the college season was just to play well and see how far we could go, and we made it to the conference semifinals. So I was really excited about that, and of course it was a bummer when we lost to Liberty, but I kind of had it in the back of my mind that I was coming back to my home state and was ready for another season of baseball.
And you came in, I think maybe 2 weeks after the season started, and you enter while the team is in the midst of the streak in its early days, still 4 in a row. You come into the fold. What kind of vibes you get from the clubhouse and the guys that you were going to become your teammates for the next month and a half?
I mean, as soon as I moved into the apartments up in Utica, I felt at home. I mean, I had boys around me that had the same goal to have fun and, of course, play well. And, I mean, joining while they're on a winning streak and while the Sox are hot was, of course, beneficial. But we just saw it as having as much fun as we all could together, and winning was just a plus.
So your first week of games, I mean, obviously the streak continued. They won their first 10 with you on the roster. I mean, just tell me about just how good the play was and just how much the team is gelling. And obviously during that streak, I mean, the record-breaking games, that getting to 10 in a row on Autism Acceptance, I definitely want your thoughts on the game within the game with that, and then obviously breaking the franchise and league records not too long after.
I mean, it felt like we were unstoppable, and it was to a point where when we snapped our win streak, it was a weird feeling because I didn't know what it felt like when we lost, because when I was there, we won 10 straight games. So, I mean, even after that loss, we just picked up where we left off and started playing our game. But, I mean, everything that we did in Utica, whether it was practicing with the guys, hitting off the tee, hitting in the cage, or it was supporting our community, whether it was helping run a camp with kids, everything was just fun. And we all had a blast doing it and made friendships that'll last for a long time.
So autism acceptance night. I mean, I know in the college ranks, there's always promotional stuff that you guys do, but don the puzzle piece jerseys and auction them off to the Kelverman Center, and obviously show out for the city by just doing what you were doing throughout the streak, which was dominating teams. In this case, it was Elmira. I mean, tell me what you remember from that game and just how you felt throughout and what you remember, obviously, about just the domination that unfolded.
I mean, it was probably, I think it was one of the largest crowds that we had this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was into it. Of course, you were doing a great job getting the fans involved. And I mean, even after the game ended, of course we won, which made it better. But auctioning off the jerseys, I think my jersey got purchased by one of the families, and I saw them at every single game since with their little boy wearing my jersey, which was special. And I feel like that night it was a ton of fun. It helped, I think, us as a team grow and the community grow closer together. And of course, just helped us play better.
And so obviously, it's very difficult to maintain the pace that you were, 18-3, I think at the end of the month. And you hit a bit of a tough stretch where you lose Brandon Durant and Easton Brenner on the same play where they collided with each other. Unfortunate injuries. I mean, Luke Godden, he had an injury that he needed to go home and repair. Rhino goes to the Cape. You guys were in rough shape for a while, but that turning point game against the Tarp Skunks, where Blue Sox legend Robbie Young came back for his Hall of Fame induction. I mean, what do you remember for that game? And, that win kind of being a turning point for you guys.
I mean, of course it sucked when all of our guys went down with injury, but I knew that we had other guys that could fill their roles and play to the best of their abilities, which would be enough for us. And, winning that game, I think it was Esh was pitching, right? I think he started that game.
Wait, I think it was Retchen.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Retchen's last start.
You're right. Yep. So, I mean, winning that game and just having that sense of we can play well even with our guys that went down with injury, and of course Rhino going to the Cape, which was awesome for him, but it taught us that we're able to win games even without those guys and having them go on to fix their injuries or even play a better place.
Another one of the big nights, obviously Autism Acceptance Night was one of them, but the following Saturday, Pink the Park Night, 4th annual in Utica. And this time it's against a team that you got familiar with, the Diamond Dogs, who you had some interesting battles with, obviously in Little Falls and then in Utica as well. But to raise all this money, wear the unbelievably sharp pink pinstripe jerseys and not just win. And by the way, I can't remember if you were behind the plate for that game. Peterson was pitching and he went down 3-0 on a base clearing double in the first. But you got out of like, I think 2 bases loaded jams. But did you feel after not allowing a run in either of those that the door was open for you to make this big comeback?
Yeah, of course, that's what baseball is all about, is taking advantage of opportunities and carrying momentum into the next pitch.
And so, I mean, go down 3-0. Peterson's, he was really good the entire summer, and he was rattled in this game in particular. But to go from down 3-0 to winning 11-3, I mean, what was working so well for you and the rest of that offense that night?
I think it was just BP, getting knocked down, and instead of staying down, just getting back up and playing his game, and the rest of the guys picking him up. And like I said, that's what baseball is all about. You can't go down 3-0 and mope around the rest of the game. You got to pick your head up and look towards the next pitch and carry that momentum into the next play.
I mean, was there obviously winning on that kind of night where it's a game that's bigger than the game itself, but was there an added level of satisfaction doing it against the Diamond Dogs, especially with I'm going to try to be polite here. Some of the, let's say, raucous, noisy fans that they can bring, half an hour, down the throughway.
It's always a good feeling when you beat a rival like that, and of course their fans are getting into it, and they could be obnoxious, but that's what baseball is all about. Those fans are into the game just like we are as players, and of course, getting a win against a team that's a half an hour away that we play a lot always feels good.
Now, the playoff game. I mean, I obviously I talked to you about it and like with the playoff woes of this franchise. I think I definitely talked about it with you and everyone in the clubhouse the day of, and going up against Auburn. You obviously hear from other guys about, and from me specifically, about payback for losing the year before, but getting them on their home field, Ash on the mound, you behind the plate. Obviously, you have to be feeling pretty confident, but not seeing him without his best stuff, going down 1-0. It should have been a lot more because Fernandez had to hose the guy at the plate. But down 1-0. I mean, even though Ash was struggling, I mean, what's the vibe in the clubhouse, in the dugout rather? Still only being down a run early in the game, and Ash again not having his best stuff, still only giving up the 1 run.
I mean, from a pitcher and catcher standpoint, when the pitcher doesn't have the stuff and the catcher kind of realizes that he doesn't have that stuff, you need to get together and talk through what's working, what's not working, and how you can overcome the what's not working. So we went down 1-0, which was minimalizing the damage. And so me and Esh got together in dugout, found something that worked for him. I think whether it was getting rid of the changeup for that day or spinning a couple curveballs more, but we figured out something that worked, and he did well the rest of the game.
So bottom of the fourth, it's a 1-0 game still. Tavares draws a walk, and a young buck, Lucas Schramm, comes up, and he just absolutely mashes a 2-run missile to left center. I mean, tell me if you could recall what the vibe was like in the dugout, flipping the game to take the lead for the first time.
I mean, baseballs don't usually fly out of our park that much, so Schramm Park in one deep left center it was electric. We were all just freaking out.
I mean, at what point did you think, like, all right, this ball's going to get out of here, even to the deepest part of the yard?
Off the bat, just the way, the way he didn't pimp it, but the way it left his bat and the way he went into his trot, we all knew it was gone. And if it wasn't, then he might have been stuck on first.
I know Lucas. I mean, he's a guy. I mean, listen, if you go to Kentucky, you got to have some level of confidence like that. I mean, bordering cockiness. I mean, I wouldn't blame him if he was. But did you guys feel the whole momentum of the game shift down that one swing of the bat?
Of course, and we felt them kind of. They backed up, kind of. It felt like, they lost their momentum, and we picked up on it.
I think the one play, I think it was the very next inning, and I'm not sure if you had that bat in this inning, but bottom of the fifth, you got a pop fly with 2 outs in the inning. It looks like, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a can of corn. This is going to be a 3rd out. When Dominic Guccia drops that ball left, are you thinking to yourself, like, if they're messing up like that, like, game over?
That's where you have to take advantage. It's when the other team isn't really paying attention to detail and making mistakes that shouldn't be made. That's when you got to really take advantage.
Now, I know I think you had a big, I think it was an RBI double. It was an RBI extra base hit late in the game that ended up being the big dagger. But after Ash struggled, I mean, how impressed were you with Sam Thompson and his relief effort going even longer than Ash did?
I mean, catching Sam was always fun, and it was funny. I faced him when EKU played Marshall this year, and he got me to pop up. So we'd always joke around about that. But getting together on the same page and finding something that worked, like we did with Ash, and I think Sam just fed off of Evan's energy. Really, there's no way that you could tell us we were losing that game. Our momentum swung in our direction. We didn't let it go.
in that ninth inning, I mean, obviously comfortable 7-1 lead. Thompson's running out of gas. He comes out with 1 out in the inning. His Marshall teammate Christian Heil comes in, and the first batter that comes up that he faces, Luke Hansen, who just so happens to be our K-man. Knowing that this was the case, and you probably obviously heard every time he came up here in the mariachi, like, were you thinking ninth inning, like, strike this guy out?
Of course I was. And it was just even better that Chili was on the mound, because then I joke around with the batter that he's going to strike out to someone that's named Chili.
Dropping the Chili like he's Kevin Malone in The Office. Had to do it. I mean, but seriously, I mean, were you telling him, especially with Hansen coming up? I mean, granted, Hansen's a really, really good ball player. I think he had the only RBI that day for Auburn. Like, and I don't want to say the word, because in Major League, Doran tells Ricky Vaughn, like, strike this mother, out. Were you actually telling him that after the warm-up session was over?
Of course I wasn't, but Chili is a great pitcher, and, I loved catching him, and I knew that if he executed what he needed to execute, which he did, he'd be able to strike him out.
And he got the out after that, and, knowing that you were moving on, and it's something that, again, this franchise hasn't seen in 6 years. I mean, and I can't even imagine, like, your manager, Doug DeLay, he's probably mentioned, like, the losses year after year. I mean, how satisfying was it to see Doug in particular, being all smiles, knowing that you guys were going to move on?
It was awesome. I wouldn't say we were necessarily satisfied, just because we weren't content with just one playoff win. And, I mean, just getting that win and seeing Doug's reaction was awesome.
So I definitely want to touch on Dougie here, because, most guys are like, I'm just going to come here, get my reps, yada, yada, yada. But, I mean, how much did you, like, get from Dougie and, having him help you just develop even more, despite already being a great player in your own right?
I mean, having a coach that could help you improve on your game, because, I mean, a lot of kids will go to summer ball and, go through the motions and just say they want to have fun. It's not serious, but having a coach where you could text them, say, hey, can we hit at the facility, and just give me feedback on my swing or something, it's nice to have. It was awesome that he was able to help us in whatever ways he could.
So, I mean, obviously, on top of, having, the coach showing initiative, and wanting to help you guys get better, I think the general feel is, everyone on the team wanted to see each other get better. Who are those guys that, you were always, let's just say if you're getting early work in the cage, who are those guys that you were always phoning up, like, hey, let's hit the cage early, get some early prep before BP?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's really anyone specific that, I'd call up. Is kind of just, we all lived in the same place. It was like, hey, anyone wants to come hit, we're going to go hit. And so, and, a lot of us would go to the cage early and work, or go to the field and throw, or go to the gym after a game or something. So it was nice having a group of guys that all had a common goal to get better and win.
So I definitely another thing I want to talk about, and I may be biased when I say this, but, like, if you go from playing a game at Murnane and then you go on the road, it's like night and day. But when it's playoffs, obviously it changes. What was the environment like going from Utica and a rabid crowd wanting that and being starving for that playoff win to going to Batavia, who's probably even hungrier?
I mean, I'd say we had the same mindset. Of course, we knew it was going to be a little tougher, just because we were on the road. We had that bus ride ahead of us. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we lost a couple guys after that first playoff win.
Yeah, and you had to play third.
Yeah, I played third that game. So we were down a few guys. I was at a position that I wasn't comfortable with. And, I mean, it was definitely tough going into that game, but we tried to play and prepare as if it were any other game.
And how would you, like, characterize that environment, like, in Batavia, like, with the fans and just the whole aura of the ballpark and all that, compared to, playing in Utica, whereas, Lively and let's be real, felt more like a minor league atmosphere than all these other places that you probably saw throughout the summer.
I mean, yeah, going on the road, going to Batavia and having, of course, fans rooting against you is never fun. But I mean, I just love the aspect of having fans around, whether it's cheering for or against. Having people there makes it feels special. Feels like you're playing for something. And although they were cheering against us, it was fun. I still had a good time playing, even as I was at third base not catching. But it was a tough environment to play in. But you can't look at it going into the game as fans rooting against. You got to look at it as just energy that you could feed off of.
And obviously, being shorthanded, that obviously worked against you here in Batavia. They moved on to advance to that championship series with Amsterdam. I mean, I heard that, some guys were pretty emotional knowing that, late in the game that this was a done deal, season's over. I mean, what were you feeling, late in the game as, the countdown in terms of how many outs you had left, was starting to dwindle?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you got to play the game all 27 outs and never think of it as, we're done in the sixth inning. But I'd be lying to say that there was not a feeling of, I don't want to say defeat, but it was lingering in the back of my mind that this could be my last summer ball game here, which sucked. But I tried to overcome it and just finish out the game and play to the best of my abilities till the last inning.
And obviously, like having that finality and knowing that you still got a 3+ hour bus ride back. I mean, what was the mood like there? And it must have been like that bittersweet kind of feeling.
It was definitely bittersweet because it was a long, hard-fought summer, and we had a successful season. We broke some records, so that bus ride it was definitely bittersweet. I mean, the guys, we still played Mafia on the bus, which is a really fun bus game. So we finished the season in good fashion.
And you talk about the lifelong bonds that now develop, especially with you kind of being like a new guy coming into the fold, a couple weeks into the season. But what more can you say about the kind of relationships that you've built? And I mean, how often are you staying in touch with these guys? Even 5 months rather after the season ended.
I mean, I'm still talking to a lot of the guys. I wouldn't say on a daily basis, but probably a weekly basis. Like we have Sharam and Applegate, who are 20 minutes down the road from me at University of Kentucky. So we'll be playing each other this year. And, I had my buddy Campy on the team, who I've known since I'm 8 years old. And just this summer was full of guys who had the same goals as me to get better and play baseball and have fun. So there's no way that I wouldn't stay in touch with these guys, as we lived together for an entire summer and played and had fun.
And I definitely want to ask, speaking of having fun, I mean, it was easy to do that at home, especially with the atmosphere. Anytime you got a run to cross the plate, I mean, the place went into a frenzy. You guys went into a frenzy. I mean, have you ever had something where, just a singular song, just like Pump It Up, just brought everyone together? And I mean, your thoughts on, especially with the bullpen shenanigans, whenever you guys would get a run across?
It was so much fun. We have this, or we had this thing at EKU with our closer, Will Bryan. Whenever he'd come in, his walkout song was Grove Street.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
So, yep, they'd turn that on. The whole place would start freaking out. And so I kind of felt like that whenever you'd play the Pump It Up when a run would score, and seeing everyone throw their hands up and scream Pump It Up was a ton of fun.
I mean, fist pumping for days like we're on the Jersey Shore, am I right?
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously, there's a lot of lessons that you can take from this kind of season. Like a lot of guys, like I said, they really don't think of it as much. There's like, I'm just getting my reps and I'm going to go back to school and just do the same thing over and over again. But what were the big things that you got out of your experience in Utica that you're taking back with you to EKU and trying to get back to that all ASUN first team level, or even hearing your name called on draft day, whether it be this coming year or the next?
I mean, yeah, I continue to learn from myself and my teammates around me every day, whether it's at school or summer ball. And being surrounded by all these guys this summer that wanted to get better just helped me keep the mindset of trusting the process and learn from your mistakes and improve where you need to improve, which is every aspect of my game. And I guess being surrounded by coaches and teammates that have that similar goal to you, it was great. So I have a ton to bring back to school to learn from.
So that's I think it's an apropos way to end this first Soxcast episode of 2023. Again, first guest of the new year. All league catcher Will King, a 346 average, nearly a RBI a game because obviously when you have a lot of catchers, you got to have everyone rotate, but averaging nearly a run batted in per game is pretty darn impressive. Will King, thanks again for the time. Best of luck, with the continued training now in the Sunshine State. And obviously, when you get to playing next month, best of luck there. And, keep making Utica proud. And obviously, your obviously the home state, and obviously Rockland, I got to give a shout out there. Keep, do them proud too.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you, Timmy. And just want to thank Utica for, being my home for the summer. It was definitely fun.
So that is going to do it for your first episode of the Soxcast here in 2023. For Will King, I'm Tim Best, your PA announcer and host of the Soxcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time with more players from last year's team, checking in with them, asking about, obviously the big memories that, like Will's, lot more to share. So thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.